Hello, this is the sort of a round two of class three. It's an intro class. We've probably been through this class at least 3 or 4 times, but this is another version of it to a live group. And we're looking at, there's a special added bonus today. It's a segment I'm adding in about the plants, because the first class is kind of about us, the exploration of, when you just sit with ourselves in silence, what is it that we are, what is it that we feel without any propaganda or conditioning. And what is it that when I feel my forehead, what is it that I feel in these eyes and this mouth and these ears and this hearing and this sight? What is all this stuff without any labels or propaganda on it? And the second class is about what's outside of me, like these relationships with one-on-one with my water or my hands or another person. And then the third class is like, well, what's the totality of things? And how do we engage and relate with the others around us? And so the class that would come after this, we're going to run through this material again in the group in more depth. And then the fourth class is fear in the soul. And that's where you go through this initial work of 4, 5, 6, 7 classes. And then we start talking about health and unraveling the game. Because if we aren't in touch with our own clarity and discernment, because the difference between discernment and judgment is the difference between disaster and success sometimes. And discernment's as simple as seeing there's a Buddha on the wall above me over there. And judgment is, I hate fucking Buddhas. So discernment is seeing what is so neutral, no charge, no polarity, no tension. It's factual. Judgment has a charge to it. Judgment is full of tension and polarity, and as I define them. Okay, so let's be clear about that. This is my definitions. This is not the universal by any means, but this is the way I've termed them from my own investigation. Because words are at best pointers at reality. One of my teachers said, words are at best pointers at reality. When we worship the words, we're worshiping false idols. And that's kind of where we're at. This Christian view is actually, the Christians and they had the alchemy, and the Hindus and the Buddhists, they had the yoga, and the Native Americans had their thing, and the Greeks had their thing. And that's kind of what natural law is about, is how we interface. And the most powerful force in the world is nature. Nature takes chaos and makes order out of it, folks. It's not the opposite. We're inverted. We're taught that nature causes chaos, tears down buildings, hurricanes, blah, blah, blah. But as my friend Nicoletta said today, that nature is based on meritocracy. The slow, weak lion gets taken out because that's the way of things. In today's world, the slow, weak, I'll just say it, idiots that are running the world, they're going to be taken out. Why? Because this is the way nature works, and natural law will eliminate them, or they will be on the other side of the suffering they have caused others. And you can imagine a character like Bill Gates, all the suffering he's caused. Well, he's got a big surprise in store for his soul, if he has a soul. It could be some AI bot that none of us understands, and sure, give him that, but everything in duality is subject to the other side of duality. So if you cause suffering, you will suffer. It's the nature of things. And I know that for a fact, and I don't need anybody to tell me otherwise, because I can see it right now through my own 2 eyes, and I've seen it over 56 years. So look at these plants. And so I unfolded from the nothingness of what we could call in alchemy, the primal matter. It's one way of putting it. It's sort of the soup of creation. The pregnant void is another one of my terms I like, the pregnant void. Not the dark night of the soul void. There's the void. That presents to the new soul on its journey. And then once we traverse through the dark night of the soul void, empty void, then the pregnant void presents itself. And the pregnant void is the place of all possibilities. And we're the refining point to bring all possibilities forward. So in that, we're a focuser of creation, and we create with what we think. What we say is more powerful, and what we do is the most powerful. So these plants, then I'm God Craigging. If I'm a verb, then I'm Craigging, the Craigging of God. You see the window up there, there's Jeaning of God and Huntering of God and Courtesying of God, and Bernadetting of God is also on the call there with Jean. And this computer screen is the computer screening of God. And we're about to look at the green people, I call them. So I did a little presentation here. So this is gynostemma, and this is how the one becomes the many. I was telling the group earlier before during the check-in that these leaves did not exist yesterday or even a few days ago. This is all growth in the last few days. This is life. This is the plant alchemy of taking earth, soil, light, sunlight, water, earth, air, water, and fire, you could say, and then the heat of the sun. And it's making energy and matter. It's making matter from energy. I mean, isn't that incredible? To me, that's like, it's unbelievable. This thing is creating out of elements. It's creating out of elements, and we don't even respect that. I do, and that's why I'm teaching, you know. This is a chocolate mint. This thing was dead a month ago, wasn't to be seen. And there's a new bud, see? And I have an even better shot of that. See, there's a close-up of it. You see, this is life. Like, there's the spiral, the DNA helix of life. It's unfolding in a DNA helix. And we don't really pay attention to that stuff. Just like our arm unfolded in the womb as a DNA helix when we were a baby. We were sort of like an egg yolk. There was an egg yolk and an egg white, and that's kind of how we started. And then we differentiated. But look at how this part differentiated from God, this delightful chocolate mint. This here's Ashitaba. It's another form of the divine. And look how it's going straight up there, and then it unfolds into this on the right. Another form of the divine. Ashitaba, another well-known tonic in Ayurveda that I seem to specialize in. Oh, wait, so we go back the other way. Sorry, go back this way. This is artichoke. From a top view, you can see how it grows in a spiralic pattern also. You can see how this thing's unfolding, and the shape is jagged, right? So it has what's called a morphology, morphology, morphology. And the Celestine Prophecy book years ago talks about this. Standard Process Incorporated in Royal Lee talks about protomorphogens. So morphology is the blueprint or the form that the being grows into. I have the morphology or the blueprint of Craig. This has the morphology of artichoke leaf. Hunter has the morphology of Hunter or the blueprint. So we want to be able to live to our potential, right? Which means we want to nourish our blueprint and be able to grow the way we want to grow. Here is a facilitator in that journey is Kiefer. So I'm moving right now, moving around a lot, not really stable. So I got this, where did the Kiefer curd go? I got this Kiefer thing here. And this is a living microbe, folks. This is one little Kiefer curd, no bigger than the end of my finger. I've magnified it here. And this thing's taking pasteurized milk, which is poison basically, and eating it and pooping out kefir. Kefir is yogurt, and kefir is the bacteria's shit. We don't like to refer to it as such, but it's bacterial excrement. That's what yogurt and kefir is. That's what miso is. That's what all ferments are. The bugs eat it and then they poop out stuff. What do you think our intestines are about? That's part of this class, is learning that our digestion is what's controlling our consciousness. And we don't even know that the bugs living in our gut have at least partial or total control over our choices. And we don't even realize it. That's a huge piece for people to realize, that if they're craving sugar, they have cravings they can't control, then, or they have behavioral problems, they don't get what they want, like autistic children, that is an addict. That is an addict. The bugs are pooping out a reward for giving them what they want. I'm not joking. That's the basis of autism in many cases. And that's Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride's book, The Gut and Psychology Syndrome. I have autistic cures in my practice. And I'm not boasting, that's factual, because I know what to do. There's another, this is three beings in a big kind of a planter box. This plant here on the far right, this plant here on the right with the kind of cute looking leaves, not the clover one, that one's greater celandine. And if you break the greater celandine leaf, it bleeds orange yellow blood. Its blood is orange yellow, for God's sakes. Must be some kind of magical plant, right? Yes, it is. It dissolves gallstones. It's the same color as bile. So it nourishes the liver. It's a miracle plant that berberine, all these berberine this and berberine that, loaded with berberine. But you don't hear about it. Why? Because it's a common weed. So what I've done with my practice over the last 30 years as a nutritionist and an herbalist is I've found the top 100 plants that are easiest to grow, gives you the biggest benefit, and also can purify the earth. That's what I'm walking around with right now. I can go into any community and I have black water plants, gray water plants, water purifiers, air purifiers, brain purifiers, skin purifiers, tonics, detoxifiers, versions of ivermectin. Don't take ivermectin, folks. Take freaking herbal anti-parasites. Viruses are more related to parasites than they are anything else. People don't even realize that. Viruses are sort of like incomplete protein chains that form themselves into Frankenstein-like proteid molecules and somehow acquire some sort of consciousness. But viruses are not what they're being presented as. They still haven't sequenced the COVID-19. There's no sequence because it doesn't exist like they say it does. It's just I'm going to say it, horse shit. So this plant here, if you dissolve the sludge on the intestinal lining and all the grooves and all the mucus in the intestines, if that gets too thick, which is the case of the arthritic, by the way, the intestinal lining gets coated with this goo. That's where that's the bugs that like to eat rotting matter. They live on that. There's too much rot and undigested food. Then the bugs that like to eat rot take over. And the bugs that like to eat rot should not get overgrown in our body, i.e. fungus. But when they do, then they can take over the brain, literally via the vagus nerve, and they can start to give signals, which I'm very familiar with as a young man. So this plant over here, then greater celandine, by dissolving the sludge, because it's a very it dissolves stones, then it's going to help with anti-parasitic activity too. So ivermectin, see that the secret of that is people don't talk about it, but the mechanism of action is anti-parasitic. And you see when you clean out the toilet for the cells, which is the lymph system, the parasites have nothing more to feed on, see? So by getting rid of some of the parasites, you should also be doing a blood cleanse and a fast to purify the blood of all the waste of all the cells that's floating around that no one really addresses in the lymphatic system and the plasma. Because the lymph is the toilet for the cells. The cells have to shit somewhere, you know, and so do all the bugs. And nobody talks about this stuff. Very few of my colleagues talk about this stuff. That's what we're talking about here. Another plant here is a water purifier. This one, there's the ribbed one here, and just to the right of it, you see these other small greener leaves, and that's called Cyperus rotundus, or sedgegrass. Common weed, wayside weed, but what separates it is a water purifier, and it's very, very prolific. You can choke out crabgrass with it, actually. What I do with crabgrass is I put in a counter-invasive. You counter an invasive with another counter-invasive that's more productive. That's my way. You choke out the bad guys with the, I have some really invasive herbs. I mean, a lot of the permaculture projects don't like me. You know, I can come in with milk thistle and take over a whole hillside with milk thistle seeds because they just fly everywhere. So Cyperus, though, the sedgegrass root is, and this says a lot when my teacher, Michael Tierra, said, Cyperus rotundus root is almost as good as bupleurum in Chinese medicine. And bupleurum is a revered liver herb in Chinese medicine. So for him to put this plant even close to that tells you the value of why you should grow it. And it's a frickin' weed, folks. The bright red little stringy roots, but it gets these little rotundus balls, and that is great medicine, especially for female menstrual complaints. Oh my God, wonderful plant. And then the other one here is plantain, plantago, not plantain, the banana. And guess where psyllium comes from, is this one of these species. Plantain has one species, plantago psyllium, where the psyllium seed comes from. So one of the seed stalks, you can kind of see the seed stalk right there, the plantain, very, very phallic, a very phallic seed stalk. I mean, I have a theory that if you tinctured up the seed stalks, it could be an aphrodisiac because it grows really straight up. Like you want a stiff wood as a man, you know? You know, you get the plants that do that. You got to take a look like, you know, might have some sexual value. So all these plants, you see all these forms, you've got one form here, one form here, one form here of the one becoming the many. Isn't that cool? There's the one becoming milk or kefir. There's the one maybe made into organite. So, you know, there's different ways that the one becomes the many. And see, there's kefir. This is motherwort. Look at this freaky looking plant. It's got sharp spikes on it. Hummingbirds love the nectar and those orange tubular flowers. And but it's like a rose, man. You can admire it from afar, but if you get too close, these seed heads, when they dry out, razor sharp. Right there, see that black right there? See that dark? Oh my God, that's razor sharp right there. A lot of the most beautiful flowers are the most dangerous. Because, you know, I love these views that the Hindus kind of have of the feminine too, you know, the feminine, divine, righteous goddess that will kick your butt, you know, Kali Ma, you know, and man, they got some righteous, gnarly feminine, you know, like Artemis, the goddess of the forest with the bow and arrow. So, you know, the feminine, what men don't realize is that the women are actually controlling the world. I mean, men really don't realize how much women see about men and don't talk about. I know because I talk to my female housemates about it. And so women can stab you without you even knowing it because they know how and where to poke, but most women don't talk about it, nor do they do it. And a lot of women are also, you know, under the spell. But man, a powerful and empowered elder woman, I mean, she knows, you know, there's a lot of leverage there, a lot of respect. And this plant is no different. I would not mess with this plant. Running around the forest, if I knew it was around, I'd be like walking slow and carefully. And even pulling these things out, they're so delicious, the nectar in these. But look at the form life took here. Look at the form life takes there. And I mean, it's just, I marvel at like, wow, look at the forms life can take. This beautiful flower to a stinging needle-like, you know, seed head. Over there on the upper right, you can see it again, you know, like, so it's really saying, I'm going to perpetuate and you're not going to mess with me, right? The big animals can't eat this plant. I mean, they can't eat the seeds because it's, even the birds probably can't get at it very easily. And then there's back to gynostemma. So there's the form of life, right? There's the form of life and all these ways that life, and even in here on the slideshow here, see, that's actually how things work there on in the earth is, where's the laser pointer? See down here, the mycelium of the soil and the soil roots of the plants are working together. And this is another version in alchemy, like that hieroglyphic monad, John Dee thing. This is the kind of stuff they were drawing years ago. See, there's the underworld at the bottom. There's the higher realms. See the fire down there at the bottom. And then for me, I have clients from all over the world that see me. And here on the right is an example. And one of my clients' mothers, and I really love what I do. And I don't see color. I was accused of being a white privileged supremacist, whatnot, years ago. And I just laughed in her face and said, ever since I was a kid, I was the one yelling at my parents to not say, or other people in my life, adults, not to say spick or nigger or any of that, because I never saw color. I thought it was ridiculous. And I stand behind that even now, that I don't. And a lot of people don't. And they're being in this PC, you know, the transgender people, for example, is like less than 1% of the population. They're getting all the say. Why is that, folks? You ever ask yourself why? They're less than 1% of the population taking so much airtime. It's because it's part of the agenda of the enchantment. The satanic realms, you know. In nature, like 1 in 10,000 is the aberrant sex. But they're not controlling the narrative with the other animals like the humans are. So, you know, I'll stand with Dave Chappelle and all the other people just saying that transgender It's a bunch of, make your choice, but stop whining about it. You've made your choice, and you came in with your God-given body, and it's like this woman over here, like I'm sitting there with my arm around her. Look at her. She's shining like the being she is. I mean, look at that beautiful dress, and it's like, just be ourselves, only we really judge ourselves. And if you're judged by another, then, that's what natural law is about. If you judge another, you're going to be judged. That's just the way it is. If you judge yourself, you're probably judging others. And that's what we're here to uncover. Like, I have a lot of self-judgment. I had a judge, a perfectionist back in the day, like you just can't believe. But again, that's part of this final part of the conversation here is that was Craig unfolding from the divine as that. And so on the recording, does anybody have any response to that last little talk about how we unfold? Because that's part of the natural law, is how we unfold in different phases of life. And this would be the recorded part, if anybody wants to mention something on the recorded. Okay, no response. We're going to go turn the recording.